So, here's what's going on tonight. I did a version of this presentation at a different nerdy night in 2015. It will remain nameless because no one can pronounce it anyway. That was 7 years ago. Now, if this were ancient Egypt or Greece or even 1900s America, that would not be an issue. But we are in the internet age now, and things are very different, and they move very fast. So, I am going to do pretty much exactly what I did in 2015 first. I found my old slides on a hard drive that I had to resuscitate, and I found the original scripts, which was the literal oldest thing in my Google Drafts folder. And there are going to be some outdated references, I'll tell you right now. So what I'm going to do is I have my beer, and anytime I have to make one and you have to listen to it, I'm just going to drink. That's your cue to just, it's not worth explaining, it's going to be fine. So this idea started out on my blog. This is how that works. And I had probably 150 blog posts. Of those, I was proud enough of 5 of them to stand in front of people and talk about them. And of those, I don't remember any of them except this one. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that might be later. But first, we're just going to open up an internet time capsule. It's going to be very fun, and you're going to love it. And I'm here to tell you tonight about Laura Secord, which is Canada's version of Paul Revere. And spoiler alert, yeah. We're coming out the gate with an ableist slur. Don't you love that? How would you like to open something from 2015 and say, I wonder if this holds up? Yeah. So I first heard that Canada had a version of Paul Revere from the webcomic, drink, by Kate Beaton. And I had not heard of her before, so I decided to thoroughly educate myself and decided after my own research that Canada's version of Paul Revere was lame. And this should not have surprised me because Canada's version of everything that America has is lame. For French fry toppings, chili cheese beats poutine any day of the week. And I have changed my mind about a lot of things, and this is not one of them. I was hoping someone would boo. Okay, excellent. And now I have to tell you to shut up because you need to be saving those for the next slide. Because this is from the scripts. Canada's politicians, even when they have a literal mental illness, are still not as crazy as America's politicians. This is the one you boo at. Who remembers this guy? He did crack as the mayor of Toronto. His name is not on the quiz. Legitimate rape guy. He lost his election and died. Just saying that's the kind of shit that used to happen. Anyway, so even Canada's hockey teams are worse than America's hockey teams. So Canada is just the worst country in every single way. Did not update those stats. Don't think I need to. So I didn't know that Canada had a version of Paul Revere because to do that, they would have to have a revolution. That's what America did. Violence is always the answer, as we can see. Canada never had a revolution. They waited until England forgot about them. England woke up one day, they were cleaning out their empire and said, I didn't even know there was a Canada. I can't believe this passed for a colony. I wonder if anyone could use this. I'm going to have a drink for Craigslist. Rest in peace. So, Canada, starting out as a disadvantage already because their history just not as colorful as America's. So, we know how Paul Revere's shit went down in 1775. This is about 40 years after that. America's getting restless, haven't had a war in a while. So they pick a fight with England again, and this time in Canada, and it's the War of 1812. So Laura Secord overhears a bunch of American soldiers at a bar. The clock is ticking, and time is of the essence, and she decides to go to sleep. She... Don't know why. If it was that important, you think she would have left right away. That's what Paul Revere did. There were 2 lanterns, which means the British were coming by sea. And you've seen these boats try to dock, right? You're all time-traveling sailors like I am. They don't have motors. They have to wait for a breeze. They pull into the dock, going exactly this fast. Once they're there, the soldiers have to get off on a plank. A plank is, it's a plank. It's one board. It wobbles around. He had time to take a nap, is what I'm saying, but he didn't. He got on his horse, he started shouting, the British are coming, and he was done by the time they were unloading the boats. Laura Secord, no such urgency. She's burning daylight, gets her 8 hours, wakes up, and decides to walk. Doesn't ask if anyone has a horse. doesn't ask if anyone has a bike, decides to walk it, so she walked it. And there are some sources on Wikipedia that say she walked 20 miles, some say 12, some say not even a mile, maybe. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt, and let's say that she walked 20 miles. In today's economy, that's a lot. But your grandpa walked 10 miles to school each day. So on any given day, he was as big a hero as Secord. And his grandpa walked 20 miles to school each day because distance inflation is the opposite of monetary, and you don't have to do the math. I did the math. Secord should have been able to do 100 miles easy, but she didn't. She walked 20. She walked 20, shows up where the Brits are hanging out, and says, guys, you're not going to believe this. There's a surprise attack. It's coming today. And they fucking believed her. This is the British intelligence gathering machine in 1812. It's waiting for witchy women to wander out of the woods with something useful to say. And it worked. The British, they repelled the surprise attack. The British only had 20 soldiers there. They sent Native Americans to do all of the real battling. So if there's one thing that I have to declare a draw on, it is Americans exploiting native populations. A+, Britain. So that's it. That's Canada's answer for Secord. By snitching on the Secord, snitching on the U.S., thinks that makes her equal to Paul Revere, and I think history has judged them accordingly. So that was it. How do we feel about 2015 so far? Not bad? Not bad? I hear 3 people clapping. That's as good as I could hope for. So, like I said, this was a popular talk at the time, actually. It's ultimately how I got this gig. I had a friend of mine who was friends with one of the organizers of this event. She referred me to him on the merits of this presentation, and that was in 2019. So it stuck with her for like 4 years. And I have been blowing Rory off ever since. Sorry, Rory. But a big part of that was because I was losing confidence in the concept almost as soon as I was making it. And there are a couple of reasons for that, but the one I want to talk about tonight is the gender bias on Wikipedia. So, ladies, this is where I tell you how hard it is to be a woman on the internet. And I invented a word for that. It's called mansplaining, and this is what it sounds like. So, Wikipedia, which is a place on the internet where people interact with each other, turns out not that great of a place for a woman to be. That stunned silence is exactly what that revelation deserves. But we all know this. If you're ever, whoever you are, if you try and play a video game or comment on a news article or post a picture of yourself in a bathing suit or post a picture of yourself in a regular suit, those experiences are completely different, whether you're a man or a woman. And anytime you interact with other people, that appears to be what the internet comes back to you with. It would be not good, but okay if the predominantly male editorship of Wikipedia was sitting around writing really well-written, really immaculately sourced articles on female scientists and historical figures and topics that women have disproportionate expertise about. But, surprise, they're not. They are blocking those kinds of entries from being published in the first place, and they are nominating the ones that do exist for deletion. So I have a couple of examples for you. I'm going to start with Emily Temple Wood. Her research was responsible for a lot of the statistics that we saw on the previous slide. And she's an OG female Wikipedia editor. Over the course of several years, she added 4,900 scientists and historical figures, people who had only been referenced in offline journals to the site, and had come up with a list of 4,400 more that met Wikipedia's standards for notability but had not been published yet. One of those women was Donna Strickland. She had an entry that was as a draft for years that was not allowed to be published because the references in her entry did not show significant coverage, or as opposed to just passing mentions to her. She got her article in 2018, 2 hours after she won a Nobel Prize. That's what it took to be notable. And then there's Clara Haas. She was a botanist in the 1900s. There was a disease called citrus canker going around at the time. It was threatening every orange tree in Florida and the rest of the South. And she discovered the cause to be bacterial, which allowed for the creation of a treatment that saved the orange crop in Florida. So they were able to prop up the economy with oranges until they could start exporting other more valuable things like homophobic legislation. And yeah, without her, the Florida man that we all know and love would have been one last literal man living in Florida, still trying to sell a swamp to Walt Disney's Frozen Head in 2022. And her Wikipedia entry is less than 300 words long. So, I first became aware of this issue in 2015, but I wanted to do a little bit more research on it, so I went back to Wikipedia because I'm a fucking addict. They actually have a page called the Gender Bias on Wikipedia. And this is a problem that has probably existed since Wikipedia started, but going back to 2011, it's a problem that they have been actively trying to address through the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the organization that hosts Wikipedia. And at the time, the woman who was executive director of that foundation, her name was Sue Gardner. In 2011, she started compiling reasons why they were having trouble attracting female editors and setting targets. And by 2013, it sounded like they were throwing in the towel. And there was a lot of media coverage from 2013 to 2015, which is when I became aware of it. But since then, it's kind of petered out. I'm not an internet archaeologist, but I have a theory that maybe something happened in 2016 that really kind of shifted focus away from harassment in virtual spaces to physical spaces. Don't know what that could have been, but this is a problem that has existed forever as part of the cost of doing business now, and doesn't even really get talked about anymore. There's a lot of things from the 2010s that we should probably not be talking about anymore, but the gender bias on Wikipedia is not one of them, because it still matters. Whenever I hear something on the radio, I could have said podcast, but I was thirsty. I still go to Wikipedia. And because I don't know really what my other options are, I could subscribe to Britannica, but traditional encyclopedias were all written by men, and I don't know that there's the bias, and I'm not alone. There's literal billions of other people that don't want to use the number 2 or number 8 best option. So I don't know. I go to Wikipedia, and I think, because I know of this bias, I'm able to not subscribe to it and not let it affect me. But I don't know if that's true after revisiting this presentation from 2015. My original inspiration was a comic by Kate Beaton. She got her degree in history and anthropology, so she knows how to consult a primary source. And whatever she was reading about Laura Secord inspired her to create a portrayal of her that was a fierce rival to Paul Revere, someone equal to. And I, not knowing her, went to Wikipedia, refreshed myself on Paul Revere, read about Laura Secord, and set up a presentation to present her as dismissed or someone less than. And part of that's the tone. It's sarcastic. You guys get the joke. I think the people that I presented it to before also got the joke. But I have to wonder if, there was a better article. Maybe I would have set it up a little differently, something that wasn't a glib ripoff of the Colbert Report. So, what's the solution? I'll tell you what I thought the solution was going to be. Wikipedia needs more female editors, and I'm looking out at a bunch of smart women right now, so let's all get out our phones and sign up. And I realized how naive that was whenever I was reading an article in 2015 called, "So You Want to Edit Wikipedia as a Woman?" And as a man, you can kind of intellectualize that it fucking sucks out there, but something about seeing it all itemized and bulleted, and these are all the things you're going to have to avoid if you decide to go. In addition to this, there's advice like don't use a screen name that you use anywhere else, because these trolls are going to stalk you across every platform they can find you on. And don't ever reveal your IP address, because everyone is so thirsty to dox your shit. So I can't recommend that. That's not a gauntlet that I'm going to recommend anyone take on. So I'm in a familiar place right now. I think of myself as a problem solver. I'm actually probably more of a problem seeker. The blog that I talked about, I spent 150 entries, 800 words at a time, and most of them landed somewhere like, here's a problem that sucks. Maybe we could solve it with design. Good luck. So here's a building that kind of looks like a dick. But I'm short on solutions. So the best I can do tonight is pass on a curse that I have, which is every time I open Wikipedia, which is a lot, I think this is not good and it could be a lot better. And so I'm hoping that maybe someone tonight the next time, or the 10th from next time, or the 100th from next time you open a Wikipedia tab, you'll think that there's a better, more equitable way of getting your information, and you'll know what to do. So that's all I got. Thanks.